Howard J. Morris and Jenny Lee didn't just co-author the new book, Women Are Crazy, Men Are Stupid. They actually lived together as a couple. My own experience, many years removed, is that working on a book with my spouse, a gifted editor, was that to continue doing so would generate the title, Women Are Crazy, Men Are Stupid, Couple is Divorced. But I digress. Morris and Lee have an advantage over most couples who might put themselves in the position of exposing the intricacies of an interpersonal relationship. They're professional TV comedy writers, so zingers and comebacks are all part of a day's work. Howard began his career writing for one of my favorite HBO series of all time, Dream On, and later wrote for Home Improvement, My Wife and Kids, According to Jim, and The Starter Wife. Jenny was a writer on one of my wife's favorite shows, Samantha Who, and is the author of 3 humor collections, including Skinny Bitching. And I love that I'm an adult and can get away with saying that. Howard and Jenny, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you.
How are you guys?
Happy New Year. Good. It's great to be here.
You know, I in 8th grade, I was the editor of school newspaper, and we reviewed American Graffiti. And the girl who wrote the review said in the review that the movie was bitchin', and the newspaper got shut down for a month. So when I say I enjoy saying the word,
wow,
I mean it.
Yeah, you totally.
Well, let me ask you guys right up front. Has writing this book affected the nature and essence of your relationship, either during the writing process itself or since publication?
Yes. Do you want to start, Jenny?
I'll start on that one. You know, I have to say in the beginning of the process, Howard's the one who really pushed forward the book. He was like, I think we should do it, I think we should do it. And I was really no. And that was a lot of the book proposal that we had submitted, which was us fighting that out because I just thought it was a ridiculous idea to do this as a couple. I was like, we have to protect relationships are so hard anyway. Why would we add all this extra stressor of working together on it? He prevailed, and because I was like, you know what, if the proposal sells, then I'll do it. And then we did it, and we had a couple more fights. But since the book came out, it's been a great process. Like, I just think the finished product ended up so much, like Howard was right, he was a visionary. Like, it ended up being so much more than I thought it would be that I was really pleased and happy, and I'm really happy that he pushed me towards it. So it's actually smoothed out considerably since the writing of the book.
Well, there's been moments, but I mean, let's put it this way: we're doing a sitcom based on the book right now, so we're doing it again.
I know.
So it couldn't have been that bad, but it was. I mean, you know, the nature of the book is we had to be honest about ourselves. And so, I mean, that was the challenge because, you know, you couldn't. I mean, on the good side is you can't. It makes you deal with everything because you're sort of writing it, and you're writing it, you know, the way the book works is I write sort of the beginning of the chapter, and then Jenny responds, and it makes you look at everything. You can't really hide. And we both knew that the book had to be honest, and we had to be honest about ourselves and not be afraid to be embarrassed by, you know, what we wrote. And so it has brought us closer together. But, you know, there are moments, you know, where I would write a beginning of a chapter and let's say I would give it to her, and sometimes I wouldn't hear what she thought for several days. And, you know, we're living together. So, I mean, you know, so, but it was clearly a challenge. But, you know, if you get through it, I think it has made it stronger.
Well, now that you say you're doing a sitcom based on this, I'm suddenly reminded of that Warren Beatty movie from Warren Beatty line from Madonna's Truth or Dare, and I'll try to paraphrase it, but I think that he was freaked out because she wanted the camera on all the time.
Right.
Like life didn't exist unless the camera was on her.
Right. He's like, exactly. I remember that totally clearly. He's like, why would you even want to say something if it's not on TV? Like, why would you even? I thought that was a great line. Sorry.
Wait a minute. Yeah. How does this work? I've got each of you calling on a different line, and another line is ringing. This is way too complicated.
I know. I'm at home, and I'm on my cell phone, and that was the home phone, which I just actually picked up on someone and hung up on them right away.
And I have an office, so I'm where we actually do much of our writing. So I'm at the office.
Now, did you guys plan to that this would be sitcom material in the beginning? Well, let's say not at the very beginning when Howard, you were convincing Jenny to do it, but at what point did you realize that this had potential for something else?
Well, as we started writing it, first of all, this is our, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, sitcoms and comedy, and so as we were writing the book, and what I love about the book, about writing a book, is it gives you so much freedom that you don't have, on television, especially network television. But also, there's, so it was a great experience in and of itself. But as we were writing it, I kept thinking, oh my God, this is a great episode. This would be a great episode. And because we are both, it's just our nature to be funny and certainly joke with each other even at the most stressful of times. We just thought it was a natural fit, and once the book got a really good response, we just sort of said, we have to do this, So and we're doing it for ABC actually, and we actually started pre-production like last week, so we're very excited.
So you're doing a pilot, or have you sold the series?
We're doing a pilot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
so we wrote the script first. We sold it like on a pitch based on the book, and then we got the green light that we get to make the pilot like the Monday before Christmas. It was the best early Christmas present ever, probably.
I would think. You're writing it, you own it. That's a great deal.
Yeah, of course. Now we have to cast people as ourselves, so that's a little tricky.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that turns out. How close are you to doing that?
We are starting casting next week, so I'll tell you. We'll call you back.
Yeah, and if you have any ideas, feel free to send them our way.
Wow. Yeah, I was just going to ask, who do each of you ideally see playing yourselves, whether it happens or not? Who would who is Howard and who is Jenny?
Well, Jenny has someone she loves.
Well, it's funny because they ask us, they're like, who's your prototype? Who's your prototype of what would be the ideal, which, of course, mine is like a movie star, and she would never do TV, but I love Isla Fisher. I think she's so great.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought she'd just be, like, super winning, but, we've already been told, like, dream on, basically.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just want a solid comic actor. It's also very sweet, the pilot, too, so someone who can do the sweet stuff and is not, it's sort of, I think the sweeter parts of the book are actually in the script for the pilot. So,
right. We just didn't want to do the snarky relationship sort of thing because, at its heart, it's like a couple who are trying, who've both kind of been through a bunch of relationships before. And this one, they're really trying to make it work, and life and everyone else is kind of complicating their love affair. So it's definitely a romantic comedy sitcom.
Okay, and also, the premise of the book is the same premise of the series, which is basically two people who've been divorced and are really trying to do it better this time. And I think that's what sort of drives the book and drove this whole idea of you really do you want to be stupid and crazy all your life? You can't help it. But, it's really driven by the sort of, other marriage, the failure or whatever you want to call it. The learning experience of it not working out sort of drives the book and, of course, drives the series, too.
So, Howard, not thinking Bob Saget as you?
No, I'm not thinking that, but you never know. You never know where you're going.
So, how many people are you putting out of jobs by creating the show yourself, owning the book, owning a chunk of the show, writing it yourselves, and how many writers and other people are going hungry because you guys are doing all this yourself?
Well, we want to. Hopefully, on a series, you need a lot of help. So we want to.
If we get to get it on the air, we'll definitely bring another writer. So hopefully, we're making jobs.
And here's the tough part. The two of you are writing the pilot, have written the pilot, I guess, and
right.
Let's say move forward with the series. Who makes the final decisions on the script?
You mean between us?
Yeah, the crazy partner or the stupid partner?
Let's see. You want to take that, Jenny?
Go ahead. Please, Howard. You answer.
No. Actually, the great thing about the book and the show for us has been it's all about both of our points of view. So, Jenny will say to me, if I wrote a scene with Jenny in it, obviously, because we split up the scenes and then we put them together, then we argue. And what's great about it is she's like, I would never say that. Women don't say that. They don't think that way. And whereas you have so many romantic comedies either written by a woman, or written by a man, where you get like it's that sort of, we really have the dual point of view on this. And that's actually sort of been the magic, I think, of the book and certainly the experience of the book and the series is that we just sort of, I sort of defer to her in terms of the Jenny character, and I think she defers to me often with the Howard character. But often, what's striking to me is often she'll write funnier lines for Howard than I would even come up with, because I think partially because we know each other so well. What do you think, Jenny?
No, I agree. I think it's the version in your head of like who does it. I mean, so the script writing was very equal. I mean, in terms of like if knock on wood, God willing, we get the show on the air, then it would be, Howard obviously has so much more TV experience than I. He is technically the showrunner, and I will, but I'm very excited to do, like, costumes and set design and things that Howard has really no interest in, basically. So we have a good, equitable sort of split up here.
Will the book, because the book has two voices, alternating voices, will the show have a narrator or a narrative in that sense, either, in the way that... like Dream On and Scrubs, we get inside the person's head. We see what they're dreaming about or thinking about. Or in like Arrested Development, there's a narrator. Any of that kind of voice to it, or is it strictly what you see on the three cameras, that kind of thing?
Well, I think there's two different questions. One is that I mean, there won't be a narrator per se, but there's certainly a dual point of view. And that's sort of, that's what I think is really the most exciting thing about it, because if you watch this show or if you read the book, it's not just the male point of view, it's not just the female point of view, it's really sort of both. And that's kind of, you often see romantic comedies that are very, sort of chick flicks or whatever, they're sort of geared towards that. But this is really both. And that's, we want to really keep that alive. That's really... interesting in the book, because in the beginning when we were discussing the format of the book, we were debating like the whole he said, she said format, which is like he relays the story and then you give my version of the exact same story. But then I was like, it might get redundant, a little bit here and there. So we kind of gave ourselves the freedom where Howard kind of started the journey and then I would respond. So I could either respond if like I didn't agree with his version of the story, or I could kind of go off on my own tangent and be free to like talk about the same sort of topic, but on the female side of things, and which actually like opened it up, I think, a lot, which was fun. So, there'll certainly be those times when men and women see things completely differently. So I think, that enlightens everybody. But then there are the times when it's just, I didn't see it any way that he was seeing it at all, and then it's like, here's the strictly female point of view, And also, the other thing about that was because of the structure of the book, it sort of forced you to look at the other person's point of view. And it's something in life you don't do as often as you either say you do or you think you do. But this way, you go in a room alone and you're reading their point of view and you're going, oh my God, like that's what she was thinking then? Or that's actually how they think? And this is when we, sort of as men, we default to, she's crazy. And, and it's sort of like this was such a great exercise for us of going, oh my God, this is really what you're thinking. In romance has always been like...
Or in my case is, wow, he wasn't thinking at all, basically.
Well, that's often the case, and it's like they just say that we're so... Men and women are so innately different. And, when you do understand it, you can, you have a lot more... it's just very helpful. Even though you still, it's like we always say, there's no cure for this disease,
Right.
But you can certainly get it under control or control it better,
I want to ask you. I mean, as we're talking here, I'm thinking that one of the things I notice about the book is the difference in the way, Howard, you tell a story, or the way you write a chapter, and then Jenny responds. And I was kind of reminded of the way I'll tell a story, and it's got all this stuff, and I'm pointing out all these things, and my wife could tell the same story in about 3 sentences. And so,
right.
Right. So I think what happens in the book here, Howard, you've taken the lead, and you'll tell this whole thing, and I don't mean to sound insulting that it's long, but because that's the way I tell stories. It's page after page. Jenny will jump in with a couple of very short, pithy comments, and then we're on to the next chapter. And it's like, and the effect is the same. You chuckled when Howard was telling the story or the incident or whatever it may be. Jenny jumps in, tells the same thing in shorter space, and you're still laughing. And it's just men and women, I guess.
Yeah.
That is another difference, but she, sometimes when you can say with one line, she has one particularly hilarious line, in the book that, her entire response to my chapter, my very long chapter was one line, and it made me laugh very hard. But I also realized she got out of writing a chapter.
Yeah.
Now wait a minute. I want to know which one that is. My first thought was it's about Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
It's funny. I had a lot of friends who were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny," because when I was reading that chapter, that's the only thing I was thinking about, being like, "Oh, I wonder what she looks like." Like that.
Explain though, Jenny. Explain what the chapter was, and then.
The chapter was Howard discussing like his major infatuation with his college girlfriend and all the drama and heartache over this one girl in college. And I mean, when he was telling me the story, he's going on and on about her. And in my head, again, like naturally, the first thought that came to my mind is like, oh, well, is this girl pretty? So that's what I was most interested in, not his journey, but like, oh, what does she look like? So.
Well, and of course, the guy reading that chapter, the first thing he's thinking is, I wonder how big her boobs were.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, he's just listening to the story, and that was great because you had you actually. Elizabeth had a great comeback line in there where you were just so crushed by the fact that she just would not have sex with you, would not have this physical relationship. And she says we're on parallel lines, getting close but never intersecting. It's just like
that was a great line.
Yeah, we can get close but we'll never touch. Believe me, it haunted me since I was 18. That line.
Well, and. Along that line, Jenny, I wonder if you could excuse Howard and I for just a second while we talk about 7th grade girls.
Please do.
I read that with such. I identified with what you wrote about in that chapter about 6th grade. You understand how to make the girls laugh, and you're getting along great. And you're thinking, oh, this is wonderful. You go away for summer break, you come back, and all of a sudden they're wearing training bras. They've got breasts, and it's like you're crushed. You don't know what to do. Plus, that was a lost year for me. I don't know what happened that year.
Yeah, it's the beginning of our major stupid. We take a huge leap into stupid. In 7th grade when they come back and have breasts. It's very confusing.
You're right. I mean, I so love that. Every guy should read that chapter, if nothing else. And of course, the one line chapter of Jenny's that follows it. But I was thinking, I remember seeing those girls who made me insane and lose a whole year of my life at my 25th reunion several years ago, 25th high school reunion.
Ooh, how was that?
Well, and it was okay, But the thing was, I'm looking at these girls. 3 or 4 of them in particular, actually 2 of them in particular, and I'm thinking, I forfeited an entire year of my life because I couldn't take my eyes off of you 4 or 2 or however you want to count. And it was just, and what was funny was the one girl I never went out with, nothing ever happened, but it was clear to anyone who knew me that I was just just so focused on her. And here's the crazy thing. There was a dinner the night before the reunion, and about 20 of us are sitting around the table, and the girl next to me is talking to me, and for the life of me, I thought she was the spouse of someone I went to school with. So I finally turned to the guy on my right, who I've known all these years, and I said, who is that? And he says, it's so-and-so. And I said, oh, shit. It's like, that's her? But, anyway. And then, Jenny, let me come back to you now that
Sure.
we've gotten that out. You acknowledged in the course of the book that you spent 4 hours arguing for the use of an asterisk in one chapter. Is that time well spent?
To me, it always is. I think it's one of those things where, when the crazy sort of takes over and you're just like, I'm a bulldog and I'm not going to let go. Because there's that point, I think, where when you start kind of women, or I get a little irrational / hysterical, and guys just check out. They're like, I don't even know what she's saying, and they stop listening. But my point is that somewhere in there, this is never going to end unless you start listening to me and at least, let's deal with the situation, because it will just only escalate. So in my idea, it's like, just get in there, wade in. Don't try to dissuade me, but somewhere in there, I promise you, there's a rationale in my head. You can't understand it as a guy immediately, but somewhere there's something going on. So you might as well just deal with it. So it's just that's kind of how Howard has learned to deal with me, which is okay, now I think we have a really good pattern of communication where I'm feeling a little worked up over this thing, and then he'll talk about it a little bit, and I'll tell him. I'm very honest these days. I'm I'm of the age now where I'm I don't expect men to be mind readers. I will completely ask for what I want. And I will sometimes tell him, be this isn't going to go away. So we either spend some time with it and talk me down or figure out what's going on, or you're never going to go to sleep tonight. So
yeah, I mean, the key thing here from the male point of view is never get between a woman and her crazy. All right? You do not want to put yourself in that line of fire. Okay? That the crazy will burn itself out. And, as men, I think the huge mistake that we make, and believe me, no one's made more than me, is, you try to fix the crazy, you try to ration with the crazy. You have to just accept the crazy. And, if her mother's coming in 20 minutes, you just sort of accept that there's a certain level of crazy that's taking over. And you have to be supportive. You don't sort of abandon her, but you have to, get out of the way of it. Do not make yourself a target. So that's one major thing that came from our experience with the book.
You are a wise and gifted man, Howard. 21 years of marriage, and I think that the greatest thing that I've learned is to get out of the way of the crazy and not try to fix every problem and not try to understand every issue, just to be patient, nod my head sometimes, smile, and be thinking about. It's kind of like sex in the sense that while it's going on, sometimes you just have to think about what is it? What's the classic Mickey Mantle's coming up to bat? And you're thinking it's 2 men on, and there's you're down by 1 run. It's the bottom of the 9th, and you're thinking about anything but what's going on in front of you, because and you pray it will soon pass. Something else will replace it.
And if there's things that are insane that come out of her mouth, you agree. It's
exactly.
You as a young man, I think it's a young man's disease, wanting to fight and change. But I think as you get older and have a few failures under your belt, or at least moments when this blows up in your face, you sort of learn to go with it a lot more. And the great thing is that eventually it does burn itself out. I mean, we have seen that too. And so but it's never time with Jenny arguing for 4 hours over an asterisk. It's never wasted time.
Yeah, we'll get a show. Well, now we have to say we'll put it in the show. That's our idea now. We can be this will all come back later. Everything's kind of worth a little bit of time in comedy probably to laugh it out.
That's funny. My father used to say to me that nothing bad could ever happen to me because I just turn around and write about it somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
True. That is the as writers, maybe it's pathetic, but we do adopt that philosophy, and I think it works for us. There is
something on page 74, and you don't have to thumb to it right now, but there was reference to a conversation between the two of you, or conversations between the two of you about football and how your attitude is, Howard, your attitude is that she really just shouldn't talk to you during football. And I was reminded of something.
Oh, by the way, first of all, she can talk during the commercials. It's just during the game.
I completely get that, and you'll see where this is going. In 1993, I wrote a book called Why Men Watch Football.
Oh, excellent.
Which, by the way, I'll tell you that Sports Illustrated said it was a sign of the apocalypse. I just want to get that in. But but one of the quotes in the book was actually, and I'm tying this all in, was actually from Home Improvement's Tim.
Oh,
and
really?
He said at one point, and I'm paraphrasing because I couldn't find a copy of the book quick enough, why do you have to talk to me during football? Did I talk to you while you were giving birth?
Yeah, I remember that line. Yeah.
So, you know, is that, now, Jenny, is football, is that stupid or is that crazy?
Here's my take. I mean, I think I only get annoyed about the whole sports thing when men, and I've had this experience in writers' room, and actually in the Samantha Who writers' room, where all these guys kind of get a little bit like patronizing when it comes to women talking about shoes or girly things, that they think it's so like they kind of roll their eyes. But I'm like, men talk about football and golf in that exact same way that women talk about like shopping. So it's like, you give us our thing and don't patronize, so we'll let you have your little fun of discussing and agonizing over every little detail. I mean, Howard's been, when the first year of our relationship was, Howard's a huge Patriots fan, was the season where they went undefeated and then lost in the Super Bowl, and it was just so emotional in our house. He could not turn, when they lost in the Super Bowl, he clicked that remote so fast, it like off, and he literally would not speak of it for 3 months. Like
I was in a lot of pain. I was in a lot of
subject, and like I couldn't even bring it up. I couldn't ask about it. I was like, oh wow, men and women deal with things very differently. Because I was like, are you okay? And he's like, we can't talk about it. It's off. It's over. It's dead to me. And I'm like, okay. But it was so up and down. I was like, oh, this is their emotional roller coaster where they get off a lot of angst. Because sometimes I tell this to Howard, like I get all like angsty, or I'm feeling in this way, and I like, it kind of helps me to watch one of these melodramatic shows like Grey's Anatomy where it's super angsty because you feel like you can burn off some of your whatever's going on in your own life into these shows about fictional people. And I think guys do that with sports.
Jenny,
also,
I'm sorry.
I have to just amend one thing.
Go ahead.
Not that I mind that she talks, because no. I mean, during football, I'm saying. I mean, but it's that Jenny watches football from a woman's perspective, and that perspective is, when the kicker misses a field goal, she feels terrible for the kicker, even if it's on the opposite team, and she starts thinking about the kicker's wife, or their
like his
family.
Mom is watching, and then he's going to feel bad, and then his girlfriend's going to be upset, and what's going to happen? It's like she'll ask me, like, do you think they cry in the locker room, and all these things that are like, I'm like, I've never even thought about that. I just want to know what's going to happen next. So it's sort of, she watches it in a very unique way. But, I have to say it has made me a little more sensitive to the kickers' families. And, I'm always I'm noticing when the coaches get a haircut, I'm like, oh, look, Bill Belichick got a haircut. And Howard's like, what are you talking about? Who cares if he got a haircut? And I'm like, oh, but it's like, it's out of his eyes or whatever.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys that you should go to whymenwatchfootball.com, and you can read the book online for free, and I think you'll get some,
definitely.
Get some interesting stuff from that. And Jenny, I have to ask you, speaking of Grey's Anatomy, is that a reality show or is that a drama?
Grey's Anatomy?
Yeah, I've read your book. I'm just curious.
Oh, it's a drama, melodrama.
Just
melodrama.
Just checking. Howard, didn't you talk about Grey's Anatomy a little bit in the book, and how you heard all about it and you thought she was describing real life? Well,
we often, Jenny takes the lives of characters very seriously, and has at one point confused me. So I actually believed that they were real. It's one of those things where you start, when you do get involved with the crazy a little bit, and then you start believing it. And she sort of gets very emotional when she watches those shows and the emotional lives of, I was a huge fan of The Shield, and, we started watching it. Our first year together was the last year of The Shield, I guess, or maybe that was our second year. And, oh my God, I've never, it was like the way she watches football. It was a whole other experience. But she is, I think, we talk about the Sex and the City movie and the way that women bond to those characters in a way that we don't understand. It's like spending time with friends, and they have these very strong relationships, just as women sort of are, better at relationships and more attuned to them. They have them with characters also. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's true, Jenny? Or
no, I find myself sometimes quoting like things from like past Friend episodes and saying like, because behind those characters, when they're really well drawn out and you get to know them over the years, like, obviously there's a bunch of writers in a room who live some of these experiences and are like sharing. So I'm always like, it's valid. Real people wrote these characters. So, some of this stuff has happened. We're now going to be proof of that. So.
Well, speaking of sitcoms, I wonder if you guys have a couple extra minutes. We've run a little bit over, but I wanted to ask each of you about one of the shows that you've been associated with. Do you have another minute or two?
Sure.
Okay. Howard, let me start with you. Dream On. David Fury and Bill Prady have both been on Mr. Media with me at times. And so this is not the first time I've expressed my my love of that show. Why doesn't that show get any rerun love, or why doesn't it come up more often in conversation, I guess is what I'm wondering.
Well, I think now it's been a while, and it's so funny because when I worked on that show, that was my first real job out in Hollywood, and at the time, HBO was not the HBO we know now. It was their only series, to the point which was fantastic in a lot of ways, because the executives were like, whatever you want to do, just do it. But at one point they had asked us about killing one of the main characters, and we were trying to explain to them it's a series, they have to keep going. But it was but at the time when I was working on it, I would say 1 in 10 people actually knew about it. This was way before The Sopranos and way before Sex and the City, and then it ran on Fox for a while, but they put it in a cleaned up version, which was not as it's hard to we always film 2 versions of the show, and with the idea of syndication, but it's not It was a show that wasn't meant to be cleaned. When you cleaned it up, it was basically a show about sex, and when you clean that show up, it lost a little something, I think. But it is
kind of be like squeezing Californication into NBC.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Or even when they tried it with Dexter,
right.
They put Dexter on CBS for a little while, and it just, whenever you
Sex
sort of...
Sex and the City worked. When they see it, and I feel like Sex and the City, everyone's like, oh, it's just women talking about sex, but it's not, because when they cleaned that up and put it on TBS, Howard's mother started watching it, and at a state where she would have never watched the HBO show because it's too graphic. But on TBS, when they clean it up, if they take out all that part, it's still about 4 women being friends. So I thought that worked very well.
Right. Well, you are correct.
I miss the sex.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
We're back to boobs again, I think.
Right. It always comes back here.
Now that's a horrible way for me to segue to Jenny, to ask you about Samantha Who, and I apologize to everyone who's thinking what a horrible person I am at that point. But I am wondering, the show got off to a very hot start. My wife found it late and then went back and caught up on all the shows, and I watched most of that with her. What do you think eventually did that show in? Why is it not still on? It was considered a very smart, very female show.
Totally. It's hard for me to figure. I actually worked on the first 13, and then when the writer's strike happened, we were on strike for a while, and I was the last hired, and they had to cut costs, and I became a casualty of the strike. So I unfortunately did not get to finish the season. So the first 13, I had a great time, and it just caught on, and it's so wonderful to see, everyone, be excited about something. And Christina Applegate was unbelievable. She's so funny, and she can just be charming or make you laugh with, a smile or a look. So it was a very talented cast. it's hard to say, like, why. The problem with that, like, those high concept premises, I mean, to me was like, if she didn't really have a personality. I mean, you knew all this stuff in the flashback that she was like a bad girl, but like the whole journey going forward was kind of a tricky one to be like, oh, I used to be like this, but now I want to be good. It was, it kind of sometimes made it a little bit dicey to go back and forth in terms of stories, I think. So, and then I think did they move time slots? I'm not sure exactly when the down.
Well, also, I think though you hit the nail on the head in terms of high concepts are very hard to maintain in a series. Mm-hmm. And, everybody loves the pilot and the first 13 episodes, you can still play off that concept of, I don't know who I am, I'm finding out all these things about myself. But eventually a show like that or a show like Flash Forward or anything, they have to sort of...
Dollhouse. So she has no personality. Like, how can you go forward with it?
Yeah, I mean, they're very hard to maintain, and I mean, I think that's been the challenge of Lost, but they've done it really well, but they've had off years, and it's just really hard because it's not... The nature of series is something that happens, in your living room every week, which is why I think the procedurals do so well, because you can tune them in or tune them out, but... and I think that might have been the problem with Samantha Who. But what amazes me about that show is that everywhere we go, we hear people talk about how much they liked it.
Yeah. I think Twin Peaks is another example of a show.
Exactly.
It just, when you stretch to that second season, it's like, it's not working.
Right. It wasn't meant to be.
Well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, normally at this point I would ask, what's next for you guys? But obviously the pilot of Women Are Crazy, Men Are Stupid is the big thing on your plate, I guess.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And now, if anybody wants to buy the book, it's out there. And
I was going to say,
feel free.
I was going to tell everybody that you can find Women Are Crazy, Men Are Stupid by Howard J. Morris and Jenny Lee on sale at great bookstores everywhere, or also at mrmedia.com. Is there I know in the book that you guys give out email addresses if people want to write to you.
Right.
I think it's Crazy Jenny and Stupid Howard, but
at Gmail.
Right. Is there a website? Are you on Facebook with this book at all? Any of that kind of stuff going on?
Howard's on Facebook, and then but I have to say the email response has been great. Like I was getting in the beginning, like an email or two a week. It was so great, and I've heard like all these fabulous stories about people in their relationships. There was a girl who was like 20 years old, in college, first relationship. She said first time she's ever been in love, and then we've heard from people who've been married for 25 years, and so it's been such a fun experience to hear like that it's connecting with across so many different levels.
And if you write Jenny at Crazy Jenny at Gmail,
like Crazy Jenny Lee.
Crazy Jenny Lee, she will write you back. She has become friends with people all over the country who've read the book, and it's great hearing whether it was the first one we ever got was a woman in Puerto Rico just walked into the store and bought it and was having trouble with her fiance, and so she's maintained email friendships with all these people. It's been a great experience, and it all. The point of the book is to make you feel less alone, and so when they email us, they make us feel less alone, which is great.
Well, Howard, Jenny, it was very nice of you to come on the show, and to stay a little later than we planned. It's a lot of fun. The book is a real fun read, and I wish you a lot of luck with the TV show. I hope that goes well. And
thanks so much.
You get it sold, and we'll have you back. We'll have you back to talk about it. Get it on the air.
We'd love that. Yeah,
that would be great.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you both very much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.
Thanks, Tom. All right.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. And, folks, for more TV-related interviews, you can surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. As I mentioned, that's where you can listen to previous interviews with David Fury, who worked on Dream On, but is also executive producer of 24. And Bill Prady, who worked on Dream On and is now the co-creator and executive producer of The Big Bang Theory. And you subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Andelman or facebook.com/Andelman. Thanks so much for joining us today. Always appreciate when you give up a little piece of your day and spend it with us.